Now, how am I going to follow that? But as everyone knows, Cork people have no problem doing that, and I'll do it. This might be a very unusual way to start a conversation with you, and this is exactly what this is, a conversation. But the emotion I'm feeling and have been feeling over the last couple of days has been fear. Fear that my words may not be good enough to persuade you to take the most important step on the journey that could make the greatest impact on the children and students in our school communities. I was afraid maybe of tripping up, coming up those steps, my mouth going dry, stuttering, or worst of all, my mind going blank. But there again, maybe I realised that fear may well be coming from a place that if you were to see the real me, maybe you wouldn't like me. And I think all of us probably experience that at some part of each day, possibly. But those of you who know me also know that I can talk for Ireland, so that's not going to be a problem. My son reminded me in a recent conversation that at times of greatest discomfort, we can often learn the greatest lesson. One of the odd things in life is that even though the things that lead us to the most progress in our lives are preceded by risk, we tend to opt for certainty instead. The pull to stay in the comfort zone is very strong. However, if we do the things that we have always done, then we will get the results that we have always got. In my 36 years of teaching, 20 of them as a principal, and the last 4 years managing the IPPN Principal Advice Service, I am convinced that we need to do things in a different way. We need to look at things from a different perspective. We need to examine the culture in our schools and to take proactive action to develop resilience and emotional well-being in our school communities. It can initially feel uncomfortable to speak about emotional well-being. Teachers have told us, we often hear it from them, that they're not sufficiently trained or do not have the necessary skills to deal with the emotional well-being of the children, particularly their anxieties. Perhaps you, as a leader in your school, question whether you have the capacity to lead in this area of emotional well-being. Could it be you, as the leader, fear that you cannot control the school's culture, and that most of the school community who determine that culture have little or no incentive to listen to you? Managing a school culture is not dependent on the authority you have as a school leader, but can only be affected by increasing your influence over the behaviours, the beliefs, the relationships, most of all the relationships in the school. People will follow the person, not the role. So what do we mean by a culture of well-being? We can all understand that explicit, objective, curricular, academic culture in every school. And then there is the school culture. The academic culture is very well served in this country. However, can the same be said of the school culture? The culture where emotional well-being is at its heart comes about when all members of the school community take collective responsibility for that culture. It takes sustained effort, focused on commonly shared goals and values. it needs to address both that big picture and also the short-term demands all at the same time. Culture change requires a critical mass of determined individuals. What we believe in has a powerful impact on those around us, and it's also true that what we focus on and nurture grows. Indeed, the reason why we are all here today is because we in IPPN and NAPD believe in the importance of emotional well-being in all of our schools, a belief that was ignited last January by Conor Cusack here, who spoke so eloquently and passionately about it. We need to have people who can speak passionately. We need to have people who have that passion. And everyone we have spoken to about this issue since shares our belief that we need to do something now. The time is right. There are already many wonderful initiatives happening within the education system, and we have heard about some of them here today. There are many, many more. There is a worldwide shift in human consciousness, how we see the world, how we live our lives, and how we relate to people. We do not, or indeed cannot, wait for solutions, for resources to be there before starting to engage in emotional well-being. Any one of us who has struggled with our own emotional well-being has journeyed with a family member or friend through a dark place. Watched maybe a girl in 4th class eaten up by anxiety, the boy who self-harms, or the children emotionally affected by the economic circumstances of their lives. We all know that we cannot wait. We've seen the benefits of the literacy and numeracy strategy. The focus placed on it, the training provided, and the common approach taken by schools has brought about significant change in a few short years. Just imagine what would happen if we placed a similar focus on well-being in all our schools, if there was a national strategy, widely available CPD for all teachers and principals, a common approach based on the guidelines that are already there. Just imagine what can be achieved. And I was really glad to hear the Taoiseach talk about that same vision. We can achieve that. It is within our grasp. We must go out on that limb now. I'll just talk for a minute about what emotional well-being is not about. It's not another initiative. It's not about reinventing the wheel. There's so much good practice there. It's not about educators being mental health experts. It's not about the extreme cases, even though they have to be handled and managed. Just think about, if you go to the GP, you don't expect the GP to carry out a heart transplant. You go to the specialist for that. And we need those specialist services, of course we do. It's not just about the relationship that you have with others, and it's not just about the emotional well-being of children. It is certainly not about society solving another societal issue, or indeed adding to the workload of our educators. So what is it about? Schools have their rules, their regulations, their procedures, which are essential. What is even more essential is that these are applied with respect, compassion, and kindness, things that we need to teach, things that we need to educate our children to have in their lives. Meaningful, sustained connections, and Margaret spoke about the connectivity that exists within schools. These meaningful, sustained connections and relationships are necessary for this to occur. It is also a culture that is welcoming and has a shared belief that we belong to something special and great. I get that sense here today. I think we all acknowledge that we do belong to something special and great, and it can become more special and even greater. It is a culture where we examine how our behaviour affects us and affects others. A culture where the tradition of teaching and learning is always present. A culture that is constantly looked at, thought about, and then acted upon in a unified and a coordinated way. It is a culture where the relationship that you have with yourself is acknowledged and supported by personal development. And a culture where emotional well-being is embedded in everything that we do. As educators, we're very comfortable discussing areas such as literacy and numeracy. These are quantifiable. Emotional well-being is much less so. In communication, it's a well-known fact that words only account for 7% of our message. So we must remember that most of the message comes from the core of your being as a person and from your firmly held beliefs. To communicate from this place, you have to begin by knowing yourself, your emotions, your strengths, and your beliefs, as well as your vulnerabilities and dark places. We all have them. Only in understanding yourself can you connect with others on a human level. My primary relationship is with myself. All other relationships are mirrors of that. I cannot emphasize enough that we simply cannot give to our children what we do not have ourselves. By this, I mean that if we are not well in ourselves and able to hold somebody who is going through a difficult situation, we cannot hope to adequately support the emotional well-being of others. I have spoken to you about the school community. It may seem to you like a mammoth task. How do you eat an elephant? Or in this case, a mammoth. It's actually quite straightforward. Bite by bite. You might be thinking, how do I even start the conversation in my school about this? As you know, every school is engaged in the process of school self-evaluation and the school improvement planning. What do you value as a school? If you value the emotional well-being of all the people in your school, then why not prioritise this area as part of your school improvement plan? Bear in mind that there are superb guidelines and a resource pack available from NEPS on implementing well-being in schools. Niall Muldoon this morning spoke and gave his commitment to progressing work in this area. I speak about IPPN's commitment now. IPPN is committed to leading principals through this process and will provide CPD in this area for principals, just as PDST are doing for teachers. There is no doubt that training is crucial, but we must also consider, are we measuring what we value in schools? Are we measuring well-being? This has begun to happen in the whole school evaluation and management leadership and learning inspection models, and in the pilot programme on well-being Suzanne spoke about earlier. We welcome this and would support a greater emphasis being placed on this aspect of the school evaluation process. Colleges of education also have an important part to play in it. Students need education in the pivotal role a teacher plays in establishing empathy, not only with children, but with parents and colleagues alike. The responsibility that teachers bear for their own personal and professional development has to be established as a prerequisite for entering the profession. It is essential that the recruitment process also reflects the importance of emotional intelligence and particularly strong interpersonal skills. They say that it takes a community to rear a child. We live in a relational world, and we are educating our children to live in that world. Emotional well-being is a matter of huge importance to society. We all need to develop resilience if we are to overcome adversity and get through challenging times. The attendance of the Taoiseach today is testament to his and the government's commitment to well-being. We hope that no matter who is in government next year, this commitment would continue and indeed be strengthened. And I think that the Taoiseach, I'm almost certain he did give a commitment to that today. We believe that this symposium is not an end in itself, but that it is really a positive start to an ongoing conversation. Your attendance today confirms that you believe this to be important. In order for the focus to be kept on emotional well-being within our schools, to nurture it to be something long-term and sustainable, we are calling for a national strategy and a forum to be established to build on the work that is already happening in this area across agencies and across sectors. And I think the Taoiseach has indicated that the door is open to that. I'm very glad to hear that. I set out today hoping to convince you that you have the ability and that you have the strength to take the first and subsequent steps to put emotional well-being at the heart of your school community. If you need to be convinced or motivated that this is the right thing to do, then I believe Conor is the man to do the job. No pressure, Conor. I think people around here know already that I'm the secretary of Conor's fan club. When you hear what he has to say, I hope that you'll go back to your school and start the conversation with your staff, students, boards of management, and parents. While it may be challenging, it's worth remembering the following. Again, I think somebody mentioned today that Cork seemed to be taking over this. But on the Cork coat of arms, the motto is a safe harbour for ships. So this resonates, I think, with myself, and I'm sure it will with Conor too. A ship is safe in the harbour, but that is not what ships are made for. Conor reminds me just another analogy before I finish up. I seem to be thinking of, he's mortified below and he has his hand to his head. But I can see Conor inside in the dressing room at half-time with the team behind. Now, I was never in the dressing room, more the pity. But at the same time, what I hope and what I know that Conor has the capacity to do is to stand in front of you as he would in front of the dressing room as the manager and motivate you. You will want to go out and win that match, sail that ship out. And I would just want to leave you with the following. It's impossible, said pride. It's risky, said experience. It's pointless, said reason. Give it a try, whispered the heart.